There I was, 7:42 on a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the mist rolls off Willow Lake like a lazy ghost, carrying the earthy tang of damp pine needles and the faint, sweet promise of goldenrod blooming wild along the shore. My boots sank into the soft loam of the apiary, that rhythmic squelch you only get from soil that's been tended by 3 generations of thorns. The air hummed with the low, industrious buzz of my girls, over 200,000 honeybees dancing in their precise chaos, wings whispering secrets as they loaded up on nectar. I adjusted my veil, the worn linen brushing my salt and pepper beard, and popped the lid on Hive Queen Bessie, her frames heavy with the amber glow of fresh comb. That's when the whine of an ATV engine sliced through the symphony like a chainsaw through silk. Dust cloud billowing from the gravel path, here comes Victoria Hargrove, queen bee of the so-called Lakeside Heritage Preservation Society, perched on her tricked-out side-by-side like she owned the whole damn watershed. Flanked by 2 rent-a cops in ill-fitting polo shirts hired muscle from who knows where, she's waving a clipboard like it's the Ark of the Covenant, her platinum bob helmeted against the breeze, lips pursed in that perpetual lemon suck of entitlement. "Mr. Thorne," she bellowed, killing the engine with a throaty cough that sent a few scout bees veering off course. "This is your final warning. Those abominations," she jabbed a manicured finger at my hives, "nails like blood-red talons, are a blight on our historic shoreline. Cease operations immediately, or I'll have the authorities here by noon." The authorities being her fake rangers, of course, who looked more bewildered than badass. One of 'em, a kid barely out of high school with a mustache that screamed first razor, shifted his weight, clearly wondering why he was playing sheriff in a bee yard. I straightened up slow, peeling off my gloves, the leather creaking like old saddle hide, and let the lake's chill lap at my ankles through my waders. Sweat beaded under my flannel despite the nip in the air, mixing with the sticky residue of propolis that clings to everything like regret. "Morning, Vicky. Bees don't read bylaws, last I checked. And neither do I, when I'm on my own land." Her eyes narrowed to slits, that fake Chanel No. 5 wafting over the wildflower scent like a chemical spill. "What would you do if some busybody with a forged badge rolled up to your backyard empire, threatening to torch your legacy over aesthetic violations? Hell, I'd love to hear your stories. Drop your town in the comments, and I'll tell you if your local Karens are as creative with their nonsense as ours. But buckle up, folks, because this one's got more twists than a lakeside trail after a storm. Let me rewind the reel a bit, take you back to why a 58-year-old retired firefighter like me ended up knee-deep in bees and bureaucracy on the shores of Willow Lake, a postcard-perfect gem tucked in the folds of the Cascade foothills in eastern Washington. Picture it, 147 acres of glassy water ringed by cedar groves that whisper in the wind, the kind of place where eagles wheel overhead and the sunset paints the ripples in fire-orange strokes. My great-grandpa Elias, named after him, homesteaded the spit of land in 1923, back when the only preservation society was whatever pact you made with the black bears raiding your smokehouse. He built the apiary as a side hustle, those hand-carved hives still standing sentinel like wooden cathedrals, their lids etched with initials from a century of thorn hands. By the time I inherited it after Dad's stroke in '09, it was more than a farm, it was a lifeline. 20 years hauling hoses up burning ridges as a Wenatchee hotshot left me with scarred lungs and a pension that barely covered lakefront taxes. But the bees, they healed what the fires couldn't. The steady thrum of their flight, the golden drip of harvest honey, the way a single swarm could turn wild chaos into sweet order. It was therapy, legacy, and a modest living selling jars at the farmer's market, supplying local breweries with that floral fireweed nectar that makes their IPAs sing. I'd moved back full-time after losing Sarah to cancer 3 years ago. Our daughter, Lila, was off in Seattle chasing graphic design gigs, but she made me promise to keep the hives buzzing for her kids someday. Willow Bend, our loose-knit community of 89 cabins and cottages, felt like the right spot to grieve and rebuild. Folks here were salt of the earth, old-timers like Widow Hargrove, no relation to Vicky, thank God, who baked huckleberry pies that could fix a broken heart, and young families like the Patels next door, turning their plot into a permaculture paradise. Dues for the informal lake association, a voluntary $50 a year for buoy maintenance and potlucks. Peaceful, until Victoria Hargrove blew in like a squall line 2 summers back. Vicky, never Victoria, always Vicky, like she was auditioning for a Real Housewives reboot, was 52, divorced thrice, and richer than a tech bro's wet dream, thanks to flipping McMansions in Spokane. She rolled up in a gleaming black Escalade, all chrome and entitlement, and bought the old lighthouse keeper's cottage at the Point, the one with the widow's walk that screams Instagram bait. Picture her, yoga-toned frame squeezed into athleisure that cost more than my annual feed bill, that bob haircut shell-lacked to withstand a gale, and eyes like polished agates, cold, calculating, always scanning for the next mark. She rebranded herself overnight as the founder and eternal president of the Lakeside Heritage Preservation Society, complete with a glossy website, lakesideheritage.org, domain registered to a P.O. box in Vegas, and letterhead that looked official enough to fool a tourist. Her pitch at the first mandatory meeting: we're preserving our rustic charm against developers. Bull. What she really wanted was to strong-arm holdouts like me into selling cheap so her silent partners, Spokane developers with dollar signs in their eyes, could pave paradise for luxury docks and vacation rentals. That lighthouse view prime for a boutique hotel. My apiary an eyesore blocking the sightline. The stakes hit personal fast. Those hives weren't just bugs, they were Sarah's dream. She'd sketched the labels for Thorne's Golden Glow honey, her looping script capturing the curve of a queen's abdomen. Losing the land meant erasing her, us, the whole tangled root system of family I'd clung to since her chemo days. Vicky's first salvo was a violation notice for unauthorized agricultural encroachments, fining me $250 a month until I decommissioned the hives. I laughed it off at first, sent it back with a jar of honey and a note: "Sweeten your tea, Vicky. Bees predate your society by millennia." But she didn't blink. That was Exhibit A in what turned into a 6-month siege of suburban warfare, where my quiet apiary became ground zero for her ego demolition derby. It started small, the way these things do, like a bee sting you don't notice till it swells. Week 2, a cease and desist letter from her legal counsel, a template from LegalZoom, watermark still visible when I held it to the light. Claimed my hives violated heritage zoning that didn't exist outside her fever dream. I fired back with county records, my parcel grandfathered under AG exemption since 1923. Crickets. Then the complaints rolled in like tumbleweeds after a windstorm. Anonymous tips to the sheriff's office about pesticide runoff from my organic hives, pure fiction, since my girls foraged miles wide on wildflowers alone. Deputy Harlan, a buddy from my fire days, pulled me aside at the gas station. "Elias, someone's flooding the line with your name. Smells like harassment." The lake breeze carried the sharp bite of diesel from his cruiser as he handed me the report, his mustache twitching with that folksy sympathy. Vicky amped it up with community theater. She cornered folks at the dock potluck, that cloying lavender lotion of hers clashing with the smoky char of grilled salmon, whispering how my industrial beekeeping was devaluing properties and attracting aggressive swarms. Lies, all of it. My bees were gentler than a spring lamb, and the Patel's kids loved helping with veils on, giggling as they mimicked the waggle dance. But fear's a hell of a drug. Old man Jenkins, who'd fished these waters since Eisenhower, grumbled about those buzzing nuisances after Vicky slipped him a society membership form with a $100 donation pre-checked. She even hacked the community bulletin board literally, nailing over Widow Hargrove's quilt show flyers with glossy posters, "Protect our shores. Join LHSPS today." Dues jump to $200 annual, mandatory for heritage compliance, funneled straight to her preservation fund. I skipped it, of course, but watched neighbors fork over cash like it was protection money, their faces pinched under the string lights as bluegrass fiddles whined in the background. Humor kept me sane through the irony. One muggy July afternoon, sweat plastering my shirt to my back like wet wallpaper, I was harvesting frames the rich, caramel scent of uncapped honey thick enough to taste when Vicky's ATV rumbled up again. This time, she brought a certified inspector, a weaselly guy in khakis named Chet, clipboard trembling as he eyed the hives like they were live grenades. "Ma'am says these violate aesthetic codes," Chet mumbled, prodding a super with his pen till a few guards buzzed out in warning. Vicky, perched on her fender, smirked like a cat with canary feathers on its whiskers. "Document it all, Chet. Fines start at $500. I couldn't help it, laughed so hard I nearly dropped the smoker. "Aesthetics, Vicky, these hives are heirlooms. Your inspector looks like he couldn't tell propolis from Play-Doh." Chet flushed beet red, stammering about protocol, while Vicky's F.